Welcome to the critique. Today's submitted material is a transcript of an English learning session where a teacher and a proxy student practice conversational role plays and shadowing techniques to build speaking confidence. The pacing of the lesson leans heavily toward teacher explanation, which inadvertently restricts the active speaking time crucial for intermediate learners.
Hey everyone, great to be here. And, jumping right into that, is there a risk that focusing solely on teacher explanation might overlook the immediate muscle memory the listener needs to build?
Yeah, that's exactly the issue. The material makes a really strong case for consistent practice, which is great, but it falls into a pretty common pedagogical trap.
Right, where the teacher just spends disproportionately large blocks of time validating mistakes and over-explaining concepts.
Exactly. It creates this totally passive listening experience for the student rather than an active speaking one.
Do you have a specific example of that from the transcript?
Yeah, so there's this glaring moment where the proxy student, Fizu, confuses the words bored and boring.
Oh, a classic intermediate mistake.
Right, super common. But the teacher stops the entire role play to deliver this highly detailed, almost academic explanation distinguishing the feeling of being bored from the act of being a boring person.
I kind of get the instinct to correct that, though. If the teacher doesn't stop to explain the mechanics of that vocabulary, doesn't the student risk fossilizing incorrect grammar?
Well, sure.
The assumption usually is that the learner needs the rule fully mapped out, to understand the correction.
They definitely need to understand the distinction, but we have to look at the delivery mechanism here and the cognitive state of the learner.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So, when the teacher takes over the audio space to explain a rule for 2 unbroken minutes, the student instantly shifts from active generation into just passive reception.
Ah, I see. The lesson essentially stops being a language workout.
Exactly. It turns into a grammatical monologue. We're dealing with 2 different types of memory here, right? Declarative memory, which is knowing the factual rule about a word, and procedural memory, which is actually deploying that word in real-time conversation.
And speaking a language fluently relies almost entirely on that procedural memory. It is quite literally a motor skill.
Yeah, 100%.
The jaw, the tongue, the breath, they all need a physical workout just as much as the prefrontal cortex does. So if the student is just sitting there passively receiving information, they're building declarative knowledge, but their procedural machinery is completely stalled out.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the 5 tips at the end. The teacher delivers this massive, unbroken monologue containing 5 separate speaking tips.
Oh, right, with advice like, don't be afraid of mistakes, and think in English.
Yeah, and again, the content itself is sound, but it completely freezes the proxy student out of the exercise. Spending this much time explaining rules instead of practicing them is like trying to teach someone how to swim by giving a long, detailed lecture on the pool deck rather than keeping them in the water.
That is a great analogy, and the listener might feel a false sense of competence while listening to that lecture too. It's that illusion of competence.
Totally.
You hear the rule, it makes perfect logical sense in your native language, and you just assume you've acquired it. But the second you actually try to speak, the mechanism fails because you never actively drilled it.
Right. So to resolve this imbalance, the material really needs to integrate the teacher's corrections, grammar explanations, and even those motivational tips directly into the active speaking exercises.
So weaponizing the feedback so it becomes the drill itself?
Exactly. You maintain the momentum and maximize the student's vocal practice that way.
I am trying to visualize the logistics of that, though. How do you actually deliver a complex grammatical correction without breaking the conversational flow?
You trigger rapid-fire application instead of theoretical explanation. So look at an earlier moment in the transcript where the proxy student says, I wake up, instead of the past tense, I woke up.
Right, and the teacher launches into a long exposition about present versus past tense.
Right, which halts everything. Instead of that lecture, the teacher should immediately initiate a high-intensity drill. They could say something like, close, I woke up, let's lock that in. I'll give you 3 more morning actions in the present tense, and you instantly shift them to the past.
Oh, I love that. So the teacher prompts, I drink coffee, and the proxy student immediately fires back, I drink coffee.
Yes.
And then the teacher says, I eat toast, and the student responds, I ate toast.
Exactly. It forces the learner to actively engage with the grammar rather than just, nodding along to a rule. It acts almost like high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, for the language center of the brain.
That rapid-fire context switching forces the brain to bypass that sluggish native language translation loop and just rely on instinct.
Now apply that to the monologue of speaking tips at the end. It would completely change the energy of the conclusion.
Oh, definitely. Instead of just listing the 5 tips, you embed them as active repetition exercises.
Yes.
The teacher could say, tip number 5 is about communication. Let's program that into your muscle memory. Shadow me. I will focus on communication, not perfection.
Right, so the student receives the motivational advice while physically working out their vocal cords. It keeps the momentum entirely forward.
And I think we should explicitly note for the creator that these are just a few out of all possible ways to solve the pacing issue.
For sure, there are tons of ways. They could use musical cues to signal a tense shift, or implement timer challenges to gamify the correction.
Or even use physical gestures if this material is ever adapted to a video format. The overarching principle is simply converting passive listening time into active speaking time whenever technically possible.
Keeping the student in the water.
Exactly. Keeping them in the water.
Well, because maximizing active speaking time in the water is so critical, we have to evaluate the actual quality of the exercises provided when the student is speaking.
Right.
Specifically, the shadowing practice. The shadowing technique currently employed relies on disjointed basic echo repetition, which just misses a vital opportunity to challenge intermediate students with deeper cognitive engagement.
Yeah, the material utilizes this listen and repeat block featuring very rudimentary isolated sentences. We're talking phrases like, "What time is it?" and "I'm from Japan."
Right.
For an audience of intermediate learners, that level of simplicity feels really misaligned. The teacher is simultaneously encouraging the student to think in English while providing drills that barely require conscious thought.
But I would assume echo repetition builds fluency through muscle memory regardless of the complexity, right?
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how simple echo repetition might actually reinforce the habit of translating in the head, which is the exact habit the material is trying to break.
Wait, how does it reinforce translation?
When a learner hears a really short, isolated phrase and repeats it, their brain doesn't have to process any surrounding context. It doesn't have to visualize a scenario, or track a character's motivation, or even connect the phrase to a physiological emotion.
Okay, I see.
The brain simply stores the acoustic sounds in the auditory cortex temporarily and spits them back out. It basically allows the learner to mindlessly parrot the phonetic sounds without attaching any actual semantic meaning to them.
Ah, and because there is no cognitive load required to do that, the brain naturally wanders back to its default state, which is the native language?
Exactly.
Which makes perfect sense, because as I understand it from the transcript notes, the proxy student, Fizu, actually performs flawlessly on these basic repetition tasks.
Right. He aces them.
But then he explicitly admits to struggling with complex thought and mental translation during the actual role plays. The drill just isn't preparing him or the listener for the cognitive demands of real-world language.
Right. So to fix this, the creator must upgrade the shadowing exercises to feature connected, context-rich narratives, or maybe emotionally variable pacing.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Well, it forces intermediate learners to match rhythm, intonation, and meaning rather than just isolated vocabulary. We have to increase the cognitive friction just enough to keep the brain entirely submerged in English processing.
So utilizing a continuous escalating mini story for the shadowing block, instead of jumping randomly between unconnected phrases, accomplishes exactly that.
Yes, precisely.
Instead of going from "I'm from Japan" to "I love pizza," the teacher could guide the repetition through a causal sequence, like "I woke up early, but I forgot my coffee, so I rushed to the station."
Predictive processing kicks in when there is a narrative. The listener isn't just repeating sounds anymore. They are holding a timeline in their working memory to anticipate the next logical sentence.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it naturally forces proper intonation because the sentences actually relate to one another. The pitch goes up on the complication and down on the resolution.
Another really cool method to force that intonation is introducing emotional shadowing.
Oh, what's that?
The teacher prompts the student to repeat the exact same sentence using drastically different emotional tones. Take a phrase from the material like, "I'm doing well, thank you."
Okay.
The proxy student is prompted to say it cheerfully, as if greeting an old friend. Then, they are prompted to say it nervously, as if they are late for a meeting.
I hear that, but doesn't emotional shadowing risk turning the practice into an acting class rather than a language class?
That's a fair question.
If the learner is focusing heavily on acting nervous or cheerful, aren't they losing focus on the actual grammatical structure they are supposed to be internalizing?
You'd think so, but that added cognitive load is actually what cements the grammar into long-term memory. When you attach an emotion to a phrase, you activate the amygdala, which is heavily involved in memory consolidation.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of the neurological angle.
Yeah, it forces the learner to manipulate the language, stretching vowels, compressing syllables, altering pitch, which is what native speakers do constantly. Rote repetition just creates robotic speakers. Emotional shadowing bridges the gap between mechanical memorization and authentic prosody.
And keeping in mind that we want to integrate slow English so that viewers can easily understand, an emotional shadowing drill could brilliantly play with pacing.
Oh, definitely.
The teacher could prompt the student to say a phrase very slowly and deliberately as if explaining something complex, and then prompt them to say the same phrase in a sudden rush. It naturally creates that slow, accessible English while still being a rigorous drill.
That's a fantastic idea. And look, we should remind the listener that these suggestions are just a couple of examples among many potential strategies to elevate the drill.
Right, they aren't the only ways.
The creator could implement substitution shadowing, where the student has to swap out one specific verb on the fly while maintaining the rhythm.
Or they could use staggered shadowing, where the students start speaking half a second behind the teacher.
Exactly. The goal is just to ensure the shadowing block is cognitively engaging enough to demand the intermediate learner's full attention, transforming it from a simple echo into a dynamic linguistic workout.
But upgrading these exercises to a connected narrative level naturally increases the difficulty.
It does.
And when the difficulty scales up, the learner inevitably hits a wall. Which brings us to how the material handles the emotional friction when a student steps out of their comfort zone and makes a mistake.
Yeah, this is huge. The inclusion of a proxy student perfectly surfaces common emotional barriers, but the immediate, frictionless resolution of these anxieties undercuts their real-world gravity.
The proxy student frequently expresses genuine, highly relatable learner anxieties throughout the transcript. He states that he is nervous, that his mouth is tired, and that he thinks too much about grammar.
Yeah, these are incredibly authentic pain points for an intermediate learner facing that notorious intermediate plateau.
The weakness lies entirely in the teacher's response, though. The teacher resolves these complex emotional blocks instantly with generic surface-level reassurances.
Right.
We hear phrases like, "don't worry," "it's like riding a bicycle," or "mistakes are your friends."
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. Because from a narrative perspective, when you introduce a proxy character facing an obstacle, resolving it instantly without showing the underlying work really robs the listener of a learning opportunity. We need to create constructive suspense around the proxy student's challenges.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of real-world modeling? Native speakers self-correct constantly, so showing that messy process actually builds more confidence than a flawless performance.
Yes, native speakers stumble over words, they lose their train of thought, they backtrack all the time.
Right. The intention behind the teacher's reassurances is wonderfully supportive, but telling a student whose nervous system is spiking to not worry does not provide them with a tactical tool to actually downregulate that anxiety.
Exactly. The creator should allow the proxy student to actively model how to push through a mistake or a mental block in real time. Make the emotional journey a practical demonstration rather than just a theoretical talking point.
Would leaving those mistakes and moments of hesitation in the audio run the risk of confusing the listener, though? Like, if the proxy student models incorrect grammar during a freeze state, might the listener inadvertently internalize the mistake?
Well, that is exactly why the self-correction must be explicit and clearly articulated. It teaches the listener the meta-language of repair.
Ah, the meta-language of repair, I like that.
Yeah. During one of the role plays, like the restaurant scenario, the script should include a moment where the proxy student genuinely freezes. He uses the wrong word, pauses, takes an audible deep breath on the microphone, and then deploys a specific self-correction phrase.
Like a phrase such as, wait, let me start over, or sorry, could you speak a little slower?
Exactly. Or even just, how do I say this? By having the proxy student model that vulnerability, it gives the listener permission to do the exact same thing.
Right.
It equips them with the actual survival vocabulary they need to navigate a mental blank in a real-world conversation. It normalizes the physiological response of the freeze state and provides a tactical exit route.
We see another physiological response when the proxy student mentions that his mouth is tired.
Oh yeah, that's a great catch.
Navigating new phonetic sounds for an extended period causes genuine muscle fatigue in the jaw and tongue. This is a prime coaching moment that the current draft just completely misses.
Yeah, instead of the teacher just saying, that's normal, keep practicing, they should actively guide the student through a physical reset.
Right. The material could implement a brief, on-mic vocal relaxation or a physical grounding technique.
So the teacher could pause the lesson and say, I hear you. Speaking a new language is a physical workout. Let's take 3 seconds to reset. Drop your jaw, roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath in. Now let's hit that sentence again.
That is so much better. It transforms the interaction from a purely theoretical pep talk into a tactical physiological intervention. Grounding techniques actually help down-regulate the sympathetic nervous system, lowering that affective filter. It equips the listener with a bodily toolkit for their own anxiety.
And as always, we really want to reiterate that these actionable steps are just a sample of the numerous ways to dynamically showcase emotional resilience.
Definitely.
The creator could script moments where the student explicitly asks for clarification on a complex word, or where they intentionally slow their speaking rate down to a crawl in order to regain cognitive control over a difficult grammar structure.
The key is just to let the proxy student struggle authentically, and then actively, tactically coach them out of it on the audio.
Exactly. It honors the reality of the intermediate plateau. Language learning at this stage is hard, uncomfortable work. Letting the material reflect that hard work makes the eventual success feel earned and, more importantly, replicable for the listener at home.
Implementing those structural and psychological shifts will really transform this material from a passive lecture into an incredibly active, engaging workout that truly serves the intermediate learner.
All right, so to recap, maximizing the impact of this material comes down to 3 focused adjustments. First, rebalance the pacing to prioritize active student speaking time over teacher explanation by turning grammar rules and corrections into rapid-fire, high-intensity vocal drills.
Second, upgrade the shadowing techniques to feature connected, intermediate-level narratives and emotional variation, ensuring a higher cognitive load rather than mindless basic echo repetition.
And finally, allow the proxy student to authentically model real-time self-correction and physiological grounding so listeners can hear exactly how to push through their own emotional barriers and freeze states.
Spot on.
Implementing these adjustments will greatly maximize the impact of your material. We would love to hear how these concepts reshape your next draft, so please submit your revised work to the critique again for further feedback.